You're listening to She's the Business podcast.
Does it ever feel like you're running a never-ending race that you didn't even sign up to in the first place, and you're not sure exactly how you are ever going to win at this juggle of business, life, all of the things that are going on? Well, there may be something more to it than simply being able to better manage all of these conflicting priorities. What if it's actually something within your own body, within your own physiology, and the way that you're currently running your body as the vehicle in this race that you're in life? Now, we're going to deep dive into this today because the body, the mind, the spirit, they're all so interconnected. We can't really have one without the other. And so if you're feeling like you're exhausted running this business, there's just so much happening, and you can't see the way that you can actually win this race that you're in, then today's episode is exactly for you. Stay tuned because we're going deep. We're diving into the body-mind connection in today's episode, and I think you're going to love it as much as I did.
Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Osborne, and in my 23 years of business and marketing, I've built many brands to become multi-billion-dollar companies. And just in the last 10 years, I've built 2 online businesses of my own from my dining room table with 2 little babies running around at my feet. I've made it my mission to inspire you to get out of your own way and become the successful business owner who's living the lifestyle you really desire without all the hustle. This is She's the Business podcast, made by women for women. This is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration.
I'm so thrilled to bring to you a very special guest today. Her name's Lori Aikman, and she's a functional health practitioner and also has worked as a registered nurse. She has a master's in the science of nursing. So she's very, very schooled in both traditional and also more modern, holistic forms of health. Now, today's topic we're diving into, and I'm going to throw the word out there. I know it's so overused, but that word burnout, it's used everywhere. However, today, Lori and I are diving deeper into this topic and really seeking to understand what does that actually mean? Because there's so many people out there, probably myself, yourselves included, who are experiencing levels of burnout where, no, we're not hospitalized. We're not at that point where life is stopping. However, we're certainly not performing at our peak, at our best. And it's probably those of us who, like me, we're high achievers. You have that drive, and Lori shares that about herself as well, where there's a continual need to do more, to be more, to manage it all, to be performing at that level. And it leads to some responses within our body, responses with hormones and our health that's actually impacting your brain and how you think, and therefore what you're doing in your business is very, very much impacted by the state that we're currently in. So I asked Lori to come on the podcast today to dive into this topic, help us understand what's actually going on in our bodies, what to look for, what are the signs, and how we can take some simple, really easy steps to help us rise out of that place of an overly stressed nervous system where our hormones are imbalanced. And Lori has done a fantastic job of sharing with us the best of what she knows. So I know you're going to absolutely love this episode. Think of it as a little bit of self-care, even listening to this episode. Self-care for yourself and your body, but also some self-care for your business, because we get the body working well, then your business is going to thank you for it over and over again. Now, without further ado, let me play the interview for you. Okay, amazing. I'm here with Lori Aikman, and I'm really excited for this chat today, Lori. Thank you so much for joining me on She's a Business.
Yes, thank you for having me.
That's okay. Now, Lori is a functional health practitioner, and I thought that this was a really good time of year to dive into the topic of burnout. And this is something that Lori absolutely knows and specializes in. And I think a lot of us, I'm not the expert in this, so I'm completely just saying this off my own bat, but I think that there may be many of us who are entering into burnout or experiencing burnout, and we don't even know. So I'm so keen to deep dive into this today with you, Lori, and really understand, like, what is it that we should be looking for? How do we know, like, if we're in burnout, and we actually just got so used to this feeling that we're not feeling it anymore? So before we unpack that, because I know I've just given you a lovely big can of worms to open up and dive into, but do you want to tell us a little bit about your business, what it is that you actually do, because I didn't describe it very well then, but share with us who you work with and what you do. That would be wonderful.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I know. As you were talking, I was like, oh yes, we'll dive into all of this. But yes, so my background is actually in nursing. I'm a nurse practitioner, and I have a virtual practice where I use functional medicine, functional health principles, and we are the majority of the women that I work with, I like to call, they're ambitious, they're driven. A lot of them are entrepreneurs. Sometimes they work in corporate, but they're usually these high achieving women, right? That are often moms, working a lot, wearing many hats in their life. And because of that, they tend to, when they come to me and they're having symptoms of not feeling great, I usually have to explain to them that they are in a stage of burnout. And that's the thing, is we don't really realize it.
Yeah.
And I think burnout, I didn't even say the rest. So I'm in Florida as well. I'm in the US. So I was like, I didn't talk about the rest of I'm a mom as well. I've got 2 little kids. My husband works in the space industry. So he works there. There's rockets. There's a space center nearby us. So that's where we live, if anybody is familiar with Florida.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to the burnout piece. And I can speak to this totally, from personal experience as well. Even before I became a mom, just as a high achieving woman and, always working myself, very strong work ethic. Let's get it done. And women tend to put everything else first, especially if we're really passionate about what we're doing in our career, we're entrepreneur, right? The drive from being an entrepreneur, I think, is just another level than having, just being an employee.
And we all thought that we were doing it to make life easier.
Right. Yeah. Have freedom. I'm going to have freedom, be an entrepreneur. Right.
Right. Very.
But women tend to put themselves last and, or put their self-care last. And because of that, they end up in this place of burnout. So, which is, what is that?
So how did you, because I know that you mentioned you've got personal experience in this because you've been through that yourself. And I'm very interested because I think I completely identify as the overachiever, high achiever. I'm always thinking it's not good enough. I can be doing more, and I've got to be this like super mom and like a super coach and a super business owner, and I've got to be everything to everyone. I don't know where I get that from, and that sort of continual pressure, really. And it's like we want to be doing well. I think everybody wants to do well, or we think that they're winning at life and at everything. So I get it, and I get that we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace and all of that, but it's hard when it's kind of inbuilt within you to be that type of person, right? So tell me about how you discovered your own burnout. What was it looking like? How did you recognize it in the first place and move from that?
I don't think, in hindsight, looking back, I could see that I was in burnout. So background as a nurse practitioner, I worked in the ICU for 10, 11 years. So I worked, not only did I work a lot, but I worked odd shifts. I worked night shift and day shift and weekends and, kind of alternating. But same thing, I can identify, just always pushing, like really working really hard at work, but then also exercising a lot and having to, and being on a diet. And this was before children and that sort of thing, but just that always striving for the next level. For me, there were, sometimes issues with my weight, gaining weight and not being able to lose weight. But there were also issues with having like my cycles, my menstrual, my period menstrual cycles being abnormal. And so if we talk about what, because I think a lot of people hear the term burnout and they think of, I'm really burnt out at my job. I need to change my job. I need to quit. But when I talk about burnout with my clients, that could be a component, but it's really what's going on is our hormones have been depleted. And so we start to see these physical symptoms show up in our body. And what has happened is that are always achieving, always pushing. Basically, there's our fight or flight response, that part of our nervous system that tells us like, okay, I got to perform, adrenaline fires, heart rate up, blood pressure up. The problem is that that fight or flight response is getting triggered a lot. It can be even just from things as simple as parenting, especially if you're parenting, at different stages, right? It's harder than normal. Or if you have a child with special needs, or if you're a single parent, or, we have all these other factors that make it more complicated. And then to speak to your audience, you're a business owner, you're worrying about, your numbers and your employees or things like that. Or I like to explain to my clients that they're very in demand. It's not necessarily because I've had clients say, well, I like my life. I like what I'm doing, but it's that never giving yourself a break. Always, okay, I got to do this. And then I got to do this. And then I got to do this. And I got to make sure I drop off the kids. And then I got to, then I have meetings all day. And we never shift from the opposite of fight or flight is then rest and digest, or sometimes people call it breed and feed. It's, to speak to the sciencey part, it's the parasympathetic nervous system in our body, it's the autonomic nervous system. The parasympathetic is rest and digest, and the sympathetic is the fight or flight. And so, and we can literally shift back and forth between those two parts of our nervous system being fired. And what happens is, us as these busy, high achieving women, is we are spending most of our time in fight or flight, and we're getting not a lot of time, very, little time in that rest and digest. And because of that, our hormones get depleted. So when the fight or flight response is triggered, our adrenal glands, so those are, you may have heard of, a lot of people have probably heard of the term adrenal fatigue.
Yeah.
So they're getting away from using that phrase as much, but when the fight or flight response is triggered, the adrenal glands release our stress hormone cortisol. Over time, our adrenal glands, when they've been stimulated because we're stressed and we're stressed and we're stressed, as our body's way of telling us to slow down, they stop putting out as much cortisol. But they also stop putting out other hormones that become our sex hormones. So things like estrogen and progesterone. So what I see a lot in women is they start having these hormonal symptoms like, period problems, menstrual cycle, mood swings, trouble sleeping, trouble with their weight. And it's this whole nervous system hormonal balance that has gotten out of whack or thrown off.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much in that. I was just, thinking back, reflecting, and I think it creeps up on you slowly over time. You get a job as a younger person, you start working, you take on those things. I've always been active and always been doing things. And it's funny because you're like, I was always choosing the like high intensity interval training or the boot camps. It's like it had to be like hardcore, as hard as possible, or it just wasn't enough. And, you know, like even when I was pregnant, making myself go to a Pilates studio and Pilates, I was at first thinking, well, this isn't going to be enough. And I was still lifting weights and things. And it's like, wow, there was a huge insight to, this always on. But then you have a baby and then it's like you just add that in, especially if you go back to work. So now you've got a child or children and you're dealing with all of them, and you've got things that you need to do for them at different stages and ages. It's always different, but there's always going to be something that you're doing. And then, but you're adding on top of that your own exercise, your work or your business. And it's like, when do we have that chance to rest? I think that's probably what anyone listening just now was thinking. Yeah, that all sounds great. But like, when? When do I rest unless I'm sleeping? And then we're probably not having a great sleep because we're like so stressed by the time we're going to bed. And I think you just feel like it's sort of normal. And I think I even almost took pride in being like a total ultra multitasker. I'm like, well, I can be making lunch at the same time I'm emptying the dishwasher and I've got this happening. It's like I've got all these activities going on in the kitchen, and I do the same in my business. My husband hates looking at my computer because they're like, how many tabs do you have open? I know what all of them are, and I'm working on them all at the same time. And, you know,
I can relate. I can relate.
So yeah, we are where we are. And that's really interesting to, you know, maybe you start to ask those questions around, well, what's actually showing up physiologically in our bodies? What's presenting? And is there a link there that we thought maybe was just due to something else? And I have had a conversation with a doctor before, and she was like, well, it's just getting older. You know, you just got to deal with the fact that you might have put on weight and not be going, you know, not be at what you would consider to be your normal weight. And that is the most frustrating thing to hear as someone, you know, I'm not expecting to be the same weight I was when I was 20, but I'm in my mid-40s. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm being reasonable with what I expect. Yeah. I'm not being crazy or over. Like, well, maybe I am. Exactly. But, yeah, you know, it's that thing where you think they don't often have the answers. So what do we do? Yes. Like, if we are in this state where it's like we're not burnt out, it hasn't got to the point where it's like medical intervention because we're just sort of living life, but we're living life in this like, you know, wired state. And, you know, I think I could put up my hand and say I definitely have experienced it. It's been good we traveled for 8 months in a caravan. Fantastic. That was so good. And you know, there was a lot of time there was no reception anywhere. So even if I wanted to work, couldn't, which was great, right? But then coming back home, back into the house, back into activities and all of the things, it's felt very full on for the last few weeks. And so, you know, I don't want to get into that place where I'm like totally stressed out. So what can we do, or what is your advice? Where do you go from here once you start recognizing that this is what could be happening for you?
Sure. You brought up a couple points in your talking.
Sorry,
I think
go back.
I'm like, I can't leave that. I think part of why we don't recognize, right? We're told it's a normal part of being a mom. It's a normal part of getting older, right? Those are the things that our doctors are telling us. And it's just because, you know, I can speak to, I've been in both what I would call the traditional or conventional medicine side. And now the way I choose to practice is more functional or holistic. But if you're going to a traditional or conventional medicine doctor, they're not trained to look at the body in this way. Yeah. They're trained to look for disease and then, you know, prevent they're not really trained to look at these deeper issues. And I think that eventually medicine will evolve to that. But that being said, I think also that's why women think it's just normal, is because they're even if they do go to the doctor and say, hey, I have these symptoms, they're pretty much dismissed and told, well, it's normal. You know, you shouldn't expect to feel any better. Which is really unfortunate because it's just not true. You really can, if we take a look at the hormones and see what's going on, there are shifts that we can do to really, like, that's something that my clients tell me. And I really am so blessed that they get those results, as they tell me, I didn't know I could feel this good.
Yeah,
Because
amazing.
they've been told it's normal, you're a mom, you're getting older. But so to speak to what do you do, right? What do you do? Really, if we look at the science, at some point during the day, and ideally we get multiple points during the day where we're shifting from that fight or flight, go, 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 and we're shifting to that other part of the nervous system, the rest and digest. So from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. And there's a couple ways of doing that. There's a lot of, it's funny, it actually came up. I was pulling up YouTube for some reason, and probably because of the things I search. There was a YouTube video on the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is a big nerve that goes from our brainstem down through our gut in a really great way. And the vagus nerve helps us go from that fight or flight to the rest and digest.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite ways, because I find that it's most effective in my body, but to stimulate that vagus nerve and to shift my nervous system is using breath work, which is like, there's many ways to do breath work. There's Wim Hof. I have a friend, a colleague that does pause breath work. There's all different types of modalities, but a very active breath where, your stomach is kind of being engaged, you're taking deeper breaths than normal, is a really, really great way to move that nervous system from the fight or flight to the rest and digest. So that's one of my number ones, just because I find, again, in that moment, I can feel like I'm at a 9, a 10 some days, and then when I do some breath work, then I'm down here, I'm maybe I went down to a 5. I can feel physically in my body, my heart rate slow down, my blood pressure lower after I've done some breath work.
How long do you think that takes? Like, are you stopping for 5 minutes and doing breath work? Like, what do you see that you need to put in order to experience that shift?
Sure. I think it comes with practice, that you being able to shift comes with you being more aware of your body and able to do that. Most of the practitioners I know that use breath work, it's usually about a 20-minute session. A lot of times a recording, right? I have a recording that I love to use, that I just turn it on. I listen to her, tell me, breathe in and out, whatever. I do the breath work, and I, like I said, I feel a significant difference, which I think, some people are like 20 minutes, but if we look at our day, 20 minutes is a very small portion, and that it can have such a profound impact on our body.
Yeah. And that's what I wanted to ask you, I guess, is like, and maybe this is something we should have even touched on a little earlier. However, what happens if you don't address this? Like, if we just continue in the state that we're at, what actually happens? What is the reason why we should be going, well, hey, I need to prioritize a 20-minute just breathing to bring my nervous system back and regulate, dive into it. Tell us what.
Well, even just if you think about again, I love like looking at the science, right? Even if you just look at what's going on in your body when you're in fight or flight, and I love speaking to entrepreneurs about this. When you're in fight or flight, think you've got like your brain is scattered, right? Your brain, it's like you've got a lot of people describe it lizard brain. Your brain is, if you're in fight or flight, if you're in survival mode. So if we think back to our ancestors that were like literally fighting or fleeing, they had animal predators when, people lived in the wild. I mean, it was literally a survival. I have to, but that same nervous system is what's triggered in us. So we're just trying to figure out how to survive. If you are an entrepreneur, especially if, I think too, in any kind of whatever field you're in, I think I'm not in a very creative field, but I still have to be creative in, how am I going to do this different with my clients? How can I think about this differently? If I'm in survival mode, it's really hard for me to slow down and be a more effective leader. I think in the way I personally think it's effective in business, or, we help get results when we're not in panic mode all the time, right? We're not in survival mode. And two, we're going to enjoy life more when we can slow down and those happy brain chemicals, get triggered, and then we're more creative, and then the solution comes to us.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's just immediate,
Yeah. Like your brain has no ability to tune into any logic when you're stressed, because you're in that like panic, it's a panic state, even though you might not feel like you're panicking, but that means that you're very reactionary and you're doing things on that surface level. And I would see it as, where you feel like you could sit down and maybe do something that you're familiar with, because it's like, all I have to do is follow these steps and I can cope with doing that. But if someone sat down and said, okay, let's look at your strategy, or something that required your brain to go big picture, and if you're like, holy, I just can't even get into that place where I could think about it, that's very stressful thinking about it, it's probably actually because you're already in that stress state, right? Like I can definitely see the different areas of your brain and the creativity, yes, because you're actually in creation mode, needing to think, and that's not happening if you're in shutdown lizard brain survival. Like you're actually just doing what you need to do to get the next step. Like you're not going, well, how about we plan a different way to get there, because that would make way much more sense. Your brain's not able to do that when you're there. So that is actually an amazing benefit to think, not even just for your own body, but just, what is the sort of state that you're in right now in running your business day to day? Are you running it from a lizard brain?
Exactly.
Survival mode. And that probably means that you're making some decisions based on that, like from that very narrow-minded, one step ahead view, and you're not actually able to kind of sit with it and really be a bit more forward-thinking, strategic, creative, even with how you're running your business. So yes, that's a massive one. That's actually, enormous. And I think that we probably, as women, and I'm sure most people listening to the podcast, we're entrepreneurs. We are the type of people who are achievers. We're like, we haven't started a business because we're not. We started it because we've got a vision. And that probably means that you also then look at your own health and yourself. And I would say they've probably got equal weight of like how important that is to you as well.
Exactly.
And so do you see what else might happen if we don't fix it, if we kind of end up staying in this state? Like how long can humans actually exist and survive in it before something else happens?
Yeah. And so if we look, we talked about the immediate, if this stuff persists, we stay in this state. A lot of times when my clients come to me and we look at their life, I'm thinking of one client in particular, and she's an entrepreneur as well. When we looked back, it had been a period of 4 to 5 years where, and this is what a lot of, it's life. She had a death in her family. She changed before she became an entrepreneur. She had lost a job, was in the middle of a pregnancy, a family member passed away. Just a lot of very stressful things that were keeping her in survival mode. And she was newly in entrepreneurship when we were working together. And so how it showed up for her was that another goal of hers was to have another child, and she was struggling to get pregnant. Because, right. So I talked about the cortisol then affecting, the sex hormones. So then that's how it showed up in her, was that she was struggling to get pregnant. But other ways it's going to show up in the body is it can be lowered immune system. So you're getting sick a lot. It could be getting injured a lot, especially if you're like this working out person. Even if you're not working out, you can be more prone to injury. What I find too, big one, I always hear people want more energy, right? They feel tired, they feel fatigued, and then they struggle to lose weight. I would say across the board, all of my clients tell me that when they're in that state. And a big reason why that happens is because the cortisol levels have gotten out of whack. First they go high, and then eventually they can go low. But what cortisol does is cortisol actually raises your blood sugar and causes inflammation in the body as well. So a common theme I see in all of my clients is that their blood sugar is high and their insulin levels are high, which then contributes to that weight gain, contributes to inflammation. And inflammation can show up in so many ways, aches and pains, headaches. I mean, just, inflammation creates buildup in the arteries of the heart, which can lead to heart disease. Inflammation can contribute. So that would be high cholesterol, also high blood pressure. I mean, so when these things are going unchecked long-term, they're leading to chronic illnesses that people end up going on medication for, blood pressure medication, diabetes medication, cholesterol medication, medication for pain, people that, I think of a friend of mine that's in a very, she's a VP in a company, a very large company. I mean, travels the world, very busy, and I think she has a hard time sleeping unless she's, can take medication. And I like, as her friend, I sit there and go like, oh my God, you're just so stressed. You need like less stress, in your life. But I mean, that's how that stress then is really hurting our body.
Yeah.
It can show up in different ways in different people. But those are some of the big signs that things, are off. Brain fog, that's another one for women, because not having a hard time remembering things. I know that was something that showed up for me, and that can be partly to the effect on the sex hormones. So lower progesterone levels, sometimes lower estrogen levels, because so it's almost like a woman might even look like she's in early menopause because of the adrenals being so taxed and having a low cortisol output.
Yeah. Wow. There's just so much there. And I think that, we could get into this place of feeling really overwhelmed because we're like, oh my goodness,
yes,
I think like I'm probably doing all of those things and I've probably got inflammation, and what's it actually doing inside? So if anyone's listening right now, if we're starting to hear you, we're really hearing you, we're seeing ourselves in a lot of what we've been talking about. What do you want to say to us so that we don't then stress ourselves out?
Yeah. Oh my God, I have to panic now. Yeah. So yes. So, I mean, and I think of, like many people say in business, it's following the breadcrumbs. So it's like, okay, you're hearing this and light bulbs are turning on and you're going, I think this might be me. I think I might have a problem with some of this. I like to say the number one, because part of it is, nourishing your body. And so nutrition, movement, things like that are huge. But if you are still, even if you're living the healthiest lifestyle as far as eating healthy and exercising, if you have massive amounts of stress in your life, that's still going to be, that's still going to be the number one thing that's creating all those things in your, those problems in your body. So I would try breath work, or try journaling, try doing something making time every day where you can, it's easy for me to say shift your nervous system, but think about, is there something that you can do where you get lost in the moment? I always think of the quote, Brene Brown. I don't know. Are you familiar with Brene Brown?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So she talks about, it really is having fun, like when something that you do where maybe you like decide to take an art class that you love, or you decide to take a dance class, or you just try to go for a walk, or you download an app that teaches you how to do breath work, or you watch a YouTube video that, takes you through a 5-minute. My son at their preschool, they do these 5-minute yoga videos, and they do a little deep breathing in the video.
Yes.
So something, just start doing something every day and really making it a priority that's going to help you. And you're going to know in the moment, like the more that you're getting aware of your body, the mind is going to be racing. And then you're just that, whatever it is that allows you to kind of drop into your body, and get out of that panic mode. I mean, I think that is huge.
That is huge. I think that's such a great point to make, is choose something that feels fun to you, because it's going to be different, right, for all of us. And when you said that, I was like, well, that is so true, because I think we can get so caught up in, well, what's the right thing to do? What's the best thing to do? We're always looking for the right, the best. I mean, we do it all the time in business. I love to kind of help people say, like, there is no one best. It is literally what is the right one for you. Well, and only you are actually going to ever know that. So start with something fun, try it. And I'm going to take my own advice because I was sitting there thinking, gosh, well, when I used to do yoga classes, you're getting a bit of exercise, and you have to breathe, because it's all about breathing. So you're actually doing breath work, exercise, and at the end you have like little relaxation. And you would almost feel asleep sometimes. I'm like, I actually did get deeply relaxed in that class. So if you are like me and you're like one of these people who's always multitasking, you're like, well, I can't take the time off because of that. Think about how many benefits there is in that one activity. It's exercise, it's breath work, it's also relaxation, and it's time for you. It's like, actually, you go, well, you know what? I give myself to everybody else, to my kids, to my clients, to my husband, my family, whoever it is that you're giving all your time to. You still have you to look after. And so what if it was just a 20-minute or half an hour that you said, I'm going to do yoga in my lounge room for 20 minutes or half an hour. You don't even have to have a gym. And you give that as a gift to yourself, if that feels like fun for you. But, I kind of like think about the activity that you choose and like how many boxes is it ticking for you? Because I think that might be a thing that could really help you to make the time, because it's like, well, actually, this isn't a waste of time. It's not taking you away from anything. You're achieving many things in doing this one activity. And so that could be a fun way to think about, well, what are the benefits you get from it? Because like you say, it's hard. And I think for us as business owners, we're probably always thinking, well, yes, I know I should go and do that, 20-minute or 30-minute yoga class, but I've got this to do and that to do. And I think that, Laura, you probably will have something to say about this, but I kind of come from it from the perspective of the rest is actually part of the work, and you will achieve more if you give yourself a little bit of time. How often have you sat there battling with something like, oh my God, the Facebook pixel or whatever it is that you're battling with? You're like, why is this so hard? And then if you have dropped it and gone away and come back, you've probably managed to nail it in like 10, 20 minutes. Like, go to bed, sleep on it, get up in the morning, you're like, oh, it wasn't that hard after all. It's like, well,
exactly,
just overstressed, overtired, and your brain wasn't working. So you're making it hard for yourself. And so anytime we're in that place, I think that actually just walking away from whatever it is that we're doing and having that little moment, choose your activity. Yeah. I love that you shared that with us today. So tell us what you think about that. What would you add to that? Like, what tips do you have in?
Yes. I think, the point you brought up was great and I can attest to that too. I know when I've gone to a yoga class or gone for a walk, then like this idea just pops in my head rather than when I'm sitting there at the computer going, oh no, this isn't right. How do I do it? And I'm forcing it. And then I go take a break then exactly when you're out of that panic mode, then that's when the creativity comes.
Yeah.
Some other just basics is need to make sure that you're hydrating, you're drinking plenty of water. So you're right, metric. So you guys would be like a liter, 2 liters. I would say like 2 liters of water a day. I know we a lot of times go by, we go by ounces in the US, but I'm trying to think what it would be. I always tell my clients at least 80 ounces of water a day.
I have no idea, but that 2 liters sounds like that would be a decent amount. So a normal, I've got my sports bottle here. This would be probably 750 mils, so almost a liter.
Okay, yes, it would be 2. Okay, 80 ounces is 2.3 liters. I had to look it up real quick just to see.
Okay.
Yeah, so hydrating, if your brain is very sensitive to dehydration. So if you're dehydrated, your brain, that's when it, again, you're not going to be thinking, you're not going to be as sharp as you want to be in your business when you're not taking care of your body. So hydrating, another one I spoke to earlier, I find that the majority of my clients, their blood sugar and their insulin levels have been affected because of that stress hormone cortisol. Yeah. So a big thing I do with my clients is make sure that they're eating a really, healthy, balanced diet, which a lot of times for women is increasing the amount of protein that they're eating. I find most women don't eat enough protein. So a good rule of thumb was like 20 to 30, again, I'm thinking 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. And what this does is it slows down your digestion and helps keep your blood sugar from going as high. It's going to help to make your blood sugar more stable. Yeah. So often when we're, especially if we're eating carbohydrates, without a lot of protein, our blood sugar can go up and come down, and that can really affect our focus, our concentration, our energy levels. Yeah. So just from a practical standpoint, eating more protein, drinking more water, and getting sleep, sleep really is so important. And when we aren't sleeping enough, then again, it's going to be so much easier for us to get in that fight or flight mode, right? Survival mode triggered, which I know is tough because I have really small, my kids are 2.5 and a little bit over a year old. So I'm like finally to the stage where everybody's sleeping through the night. So I know that sleep can't always be controlled for some people, but if figuring out how to get more sleep, maybe staying up, finishing work late at night, isn't the most ideal, in getting some rest and coming back to it with fresh eyes in the morning. Yeah. Really just allow you to be more productive too.
Yeah, exactly. And, what is it that we're really working on? Is it something absolutely essential, or is it something that we're kind of giving ourselves these goals or milestones or deadlines that we've actually given to ourselves because guess who the boss is? And is that actually moving the needle? I find, exactly. People who've come out of a role where we were an employee, we might have had things that we had to do. And so, we create our to-do list, and to-do lists in a business will never be gone. They will always be enormous. You can always find more things to put on them. And I think that a lot of the time it's hard to shift from that place where people might have finished their day's work and signed off at the end of the day to like running a business where the work is never done. So you actually just have to choose. Now is the time to just turn off and go and do something for myself or whatever it is, because that list will be there. It'll still be there tomorrow. And, really often I think the question I often ask is like, are you doing the things that are shifting the needle, or are you doing things just to be tidy or whatever? And it's not that being tidy is bad, but it's like you're sacrificing this time for your overall health just because of something little here that really actually shouldn't matter. So what is the priority really? What priority are we giving to things which can potentially help? Because I think maybe we can find pockets of time that we're using for things that aren't necessarily the most important things. And why are we doing them in the first place? Is it because someone said, you have to post on social media, 3 times a day, and you're doing it because they said so. Instead of it's like, no, I've actually got a strategy that I've put in place and I've figured out this is when I need to post because of these reasons. Like I'd say 99% of people are not there. They're actually doing it because someone else has said that they have to. So, we can kind of turn that mirror on and reflect to ourselves, where are we spending our time on things that not having a significant impact on our business? What if you drop it to 1 time a day? What is it going to change anything? Get that time back for yourself. Anyway, I love to kind of challenge the rules and the status quo.
Yes.
But, just sort of see what we're doing. What is it that you're actually doing and why? Because it can be very easy to get blindfolded to it. Have the blinkers on. I'm sort of doing this with my hands on the video. But, you get really blinkered because of being told things and thinking, well, I've got to do whatever I was told, instead of, really, I guess, taking our own responsibility. And like you say, knowing your own body, because we are the best ones to know that, I guess, aren't we?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I have a coach who has said, that are they revenue generating activities, right? Is what you're doing actually going to make you money in your business? I mean, not that obviously there are things that have to be done that may not be, but can it be delegated out? If it's a low value task, can it be delegated out to a VA or, someone? She's also said sometimes we're in motion rather than action. We're doing things that make us feel like we're productive, but they're not, like you said, they're not actually moving the needle in the business.
Yes.
So, I think that, like you said, if you've been an employee, right, and you're used to, okay, well, I have to do these things.
Yeah. And it's so funny because we will have a deadline and people will be stressed out about this. I've got to get it done. I'm like, and what will happen if you don't?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
who is going to be, how are you going to get in trouble? Because then they're thinking, well, hang on, I'm the boss. It's my deadline I've given to myself. And guess what happens if I don't meet it? Well, nothing actually, unless you choose to. Yes. But it's funny because we're so conditioned to that way of being. 100%. And I think it would liken it to thinking, well, am I running on a treadmill right now, or am I actually running along a road? And if you're running on a treadmill, it means you're expending all of this energy and you're doing lots of activity, which might feel like, I'm really winning because I've got all this done today, but you're not going anywhere. You're actually just stationary, expending energy. So
that's such a great analogy. Yes.
Yeah. Amazing. We want to be putting our energy in the right places. So, Lori, I know that energy and helping people to feel like they have more energy is something that you're very passionate about and you have a lot of resources for. So I'd invite you to share with us if you have anything that you would like to invite people to learn from you or to reach out for.
Sure. Yes. I do have a jumpstart guide for more, like I said, those are the 2 biggest complaints I hear is, so you're speaking to entrepreneurs, maybe a lot of them online. So I have a lead magnet for, for energy and I have a lead magnet for weight loss. But yes, if you go to loriaikman.com/energy, it's a jumpstart guide for, to have more energy. And I take you through a lot of the things that I explained today. I'm taking you through and helping you understand, I find if I understand how it's affecting my body, it makes it easier for me to, shift my habits rather than, someone told me I need to drink water, so I need to drink more water. If you're understanding how it's really affecting your body and how you want to feel. So I do kind of explain some of these things again, and then give you action steps that you can do. And I mean, these are things that I do with my clients. And usually like within a week, we chat, we have a call, and then a week later we have a call and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel, it's amazing just doing some of these basic things. And a lot of it is things we know to do, but because we're not focusing on ourselves, right? We're focusing on everything else. Then those habits aren't happening. So
yeah. And what I love about it as well is I feel like it's very relevant advice, because so much of what you read on the internet is like, there is no shortage of health advice on the internet. You can read it and for your entire life, and you'll probably still never read everything that's out there. But I've kind of got to that point in my life now where I'm like, I don't want the generic stuff that's out there just for humans, or the stuff that was actually written for men and has been based on studies for men, because guess what? I'm a woman in my 40s and it's not the same. It is not the same advice for me as it would be for my husband. And I don't want that advice. I actually want what is really relevant and pertinent to me, because I don't want to waste my time with all this other stuff that doesn't work. And I think that there's, so much that's kind of coming out about that now. And, I follow a couple of people who are talking, they're like, women, we need advice that is specific, and even to life stage as well. Like, now is not the same as when I was 20. It's my body needs different things, and it's got different things happening. So the fact that you're talking about hormones, how it impacts, the stress, all of the things that are happening once we're in this stage of life, that is, I think, something to be very aware of. Like, where are we getting advice from? Are we taking advice from, like my brother-in-law loves to come and give us health advice all the time. He's right into it. And I'm always like, okay, I listen to what he says, and I think, well, I'm going to do my own research, because that's probably what works for you, and you are not me.
Yes.
So it's really great that you've put this together, and that it's something from your professional and personal experience. And I feel like it's so relevant to us, being humans, as women that are, that sort of stage of life as well. So thank you for that. And what about if they want to kind of check in with you on social media or follow you along? Do you have any favorite platform that you tend to hang out on?
Yes, I probably am most active on Instagram. And I'm just at Lori Aikman. It's just my name. It's LoriAikman. And that, it cross posts to Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, I'm on there. I've dabbled with TikTok a little bit, but I've not been consistent. I'm most consistent on Instagram. And then my website is just, LoriAikman.com too. I've mentioned before, but I do work with clients one-on-one. And then I also have a group program too. But when I'm working with clients in one-on-one, we're looking at their labs, we're looking at, there's a lot of things that everyone needs. And that's what we're able to do through the group coaching. And then if somebody's like, okay, I've done all those things and I need a little bit, more, then we can look at testing your hormones and things like that. Because and I would say, you mentioned it, the majority of my clients are, I would say 35 to 45, they're moms. I'm a mom in that age range too.
Yeah.
Right. I'll be 40 next year. I'm like, can't believe it's right around the corner. But it is, being a mom has felt totally different in my body than before I became a mom. And then, getting that right around 40 for most women. Some women, it can happen as early as 35, but we edge into that perimenopause. So about 10 years before we go through menopause. Not only if we take aside the burnout piece we talked about, just because of the stage of life, our hormones start to change as well. And things are just different. And what works for men doesn't work for us because of our bodies are unique and dynamic in that way. So
yeah, exactly. So good. There's just, I feel like there's so much we could talk about, but I think this has been a really great, awesome conversation to have today. And thank you for shining the light on some things that may have, helped some people to think, oh, wow, there could be an answer in that I just wasn't seeing or didn't know. And so I appreciate you coming and sharing with us. Thank you so much for your time. And we'll definitely want to continue this conversation, I think, and learn a bit more about it.
Yes. Thank you so much. I would just, as you said, anyone who's listening to this, I would say, if your intuition is telling you that there's something off in your body, listen to that. Even if a doctor is telling you, one or another, so many women are dismissed, unfortunately, in the medical system until finally they find somebody who can give them an accurate diagnosis. So trust your gut and advocate for yourself.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. That's brilliant. And thanks for joining us today on She's the Business.
Thank you.
Do you know what the number one challenge reported by the women joining my Facebook community, My Tribe, said that they were struggling with their marketing in 2021, and in fact, even in 2020 as well? And that was exactly how they should reach their ideal client. How do they even get in front of them in order to build their audience in the first place? That was it. And it wasn't a pick and mix. I didn't give them that answer. It was a free text question. So they could write in there anything they wanted at all. And the number of times that I saw somebody say, how to create awareness, how to get in front of my ideal client and build my audience. So many people just challenged by it. And why is that when there's such an abundance of ways that we can get in front of the ideal client? And I think it's probably that is exactly it. It's so overwhelming, isn't it? What should you do? What should you choose? What are the best ways? Whatever it is that you're doing right now might not be working. And I think it's a great time to sit back, reflect, and figure out what's the right way for you to do it. What are the ways that you're going to reach your prospective clients in 2022? So if that sounds like you, if that might have been what you wrote down in the questions on what is your biggest challenge with your marketing currently, then you're going to absolutely love the new freebie that I've just put together for you. It's called 12 Brilliant Ways to Reach Your Ideal Client. And in it, I share with you the 12 top ways that you could use in your marketing plan this year to reach a bigger, broader audience in order to attract those ideal clients in to your inner circle, into your, really well-defined audience and become real leads for you. So if you'd like to get your hands on this brand new freebie, then all you need to do is go to jessicaosborne.com/12 ways. So it's 12 ways. Very easy. You can download it there. And this is a little bit of great resource for your planning, for the planning of the new year. See what you're going to change up. What is it that you maybe haven't been doing that you could be doing? And what are those things that you've been doing and they're not very effective? And maybe you're going to drop them out of your plan this year. So please head over, grab the freebie. If you want the link, it's in the show notes. And let's get you moving on up, having more success with your marketing in 2022.